Ukraine and the US have reached an agreement on a framework for a broad economic deal that would include access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, 3 senior Ukrainian officials said Tuesday. According to Associated Press, the officials, who were familiar with the matter, spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. One of them said that Kiev hopes that signing the agreement will ensure the continued flow of US military support that Ukraine urgently needs. There was no immediate response to a request for comment from the administration of US President Donald Trump. The agreement could be signed as early as Friday, and plans are being drawn up for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy to travel to Washington to meet Trump, according to one of the Ukrainian officials. Another official said the agreement would provide an opportunity for Zelensky and Trump to discuss continued military aid to Ukraine, which is why Kiev is eager to finalize the deal. According to one official, some technical details are still to be worked out. However, the draft does not include a contentious Trump administration proposal to give the US $500 billion worth of profits from Ukraine's rare earth minerals as compensation for its wartime assistance to Kiev. Instead, the US and Ukraine would have joint ownership of a fund, and Ukraine would in the future contribute 50% of future proceeds from state-owned resources, including minerals, oil, and gas. One official said the deal had better terms of investments, and another one said that Kiev secured favorable amendments and viewed the outcome as positive. The deal does not, however, include security guarantees. One official said that this would be something the two presidents would discuss when they meet. The progress in negotiating the deal comes after Trump and Zelensky traded sharp rhetoric last week about their differences over the matter. Zelensky said he balked at signing off on a deal that U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent pushed during a visit to Kiev earlier this month, and the Ukrainian leader objected again days later during a meeting in Munich with Vice President J.D. Vance because the American proposal did not include security guarantees. But the two sides made significant progress during a 3-day visit to Ukraine last week by retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia. The idea was initially proposed last fall by Zelensky as part of his plan to strengthen Kiev's hand in future negotiations with Moscow. On a day when the war in Ukraine took center stage in Washington, at the United Nations, and in capitals overseas, a bipartisan panel of lawmakers on Capitol Hill urged the U.S. Trump administration to stand with Ukraine and against Russian President Vladimir Putin. Instead of doing Russia's job for it, as we did today, we must deal Russia a definitive strategic defeat, one that serves as a clear warning to all who would break international law and commit war crimes, said Democratic Representative Steny Hoyer, a member of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. Over and over again, what Putin is doing is trying to recreate the failed Soviet Union, said Republican Representative Joe Wilson of South Carolina. He's not going to stop at Ukraine. According to Associated Press, in a win for Ukraine on the third anniversary of Russia's invasion, the UN General Assembly on Monday adopted 2 resolutions calling for an end to the war, while rejecting a US draft that never mentioned Moscow's aggression. Instead, both resolutions make clear Russia was the aggressor. The United States, reflecting the extraordinary turnaround under President Donald Trump, joined Russia in voting against a Europe-backed Ukrainian resolution. The US then abstained from voting on its own resolution after Europeans succeeded in amending it. It was a setback for the Trump administration in the 193-member world body, whose resolutions are not legally binding but are seen as a barometer of world opinion. The voting at the UN took place as Trump hosted French President Emmanuel Macron in Washington. In Ukraine, Kiev is marking the bleakest anniversary yet of its war against the Russia invasion. The 3-year milestone drew more than a dozen Western leaders to Kyiv for commemorative events in a conspicuous show of support. Hours after the anniversary observances, Trump said Russian President Vladimir Putin would accept European peacekeepers in Ukraine as part of a potential deal to end the war.
We allow Putin's aggression to succeed, you can double our defense budget, and you'll invite more bloodshed. This we cannot do. I'm glad this is a bipartisan group. It must be, it has to be for us to succeed, to convince us that the ultimate victory remains territorial integrity, security assurances, rebuilding Ukraine, not subsidizing Putin.
This past weekend, as the world hopes and works for peace in Ukraine, dictator Putin launched 267 of Russia's largest drones against all regions of Ukraine, the largest strikes since the war began. Freedom lovers across our nation and world bow their heads in awe of the courageous, long-suffering people of Ukraine. We feel and see their hankering for liberty. We see how hard their patriots fight back.
Over and over again, what Putin is doing is trying to recreate the failed Soviet Union. He's not going to stop at Ukraine. And so it's just so important. And I take that personally as peace through strength. And so the best way to protect American families is to stop the dictators overseas, to protect and promote freedom around the world by having our allies stand firm to provide peace through strength. Thank you.
Last week, the anchor of the largest show on Russian state media said gleefully, "We wanted to saw the Western world into pieces." But Trump decided to saw it through himself. Trump is now doing our job, our being Russia, our job for us. That's what this administration is doing. And shamefully, inexplicably, America sided with a nation, Russia, that has committed war crimes by invading with no justification Ukraine. And I pray, Joe, I pray that is not the position of the Congress of the United States. Instead of doing Russia's jobs for it, as we did today, we must deal Russia a definitive strategic defeat, one that serves as a clear warning to all who would break international law and commit war crimes.